Andrew, how are you feeling today?
I'm doing great, Daniel. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It was a bit of a taxing week. Had
Oh no.
multiple projects. Had multiple projects. So I'm glad that it's Friday evening, and I have a bit of an off kind of weekend. So I'm really looking forward to wind down a little bit.
Oh, that's good. It's been an interesting week for me, but I'm heading out of town tonight, and it's morning in my part of the world right now, so I
Okay.
got still a little bit more of my day in front of me, and then I'm taking off for the weekend. It's a long weekend here, so I'm looking forward to escaping for a few days and coming back refreshed. Hopefully, is the goal.
All right. So you're going camping or something?
No, I'm going to visit my partner. She's in Detroit, and
Okay.
we're gonna go get some work done and whatnot for our sites and podcast and all the stuff that needs to happen. That when you run a business like this, that's in multiple
Definitely.
locations, getting together
Yeah.
is always so much better, so much more fruitful when you can have
Hmm.
your minds together. I would have come to Malta for the interview too, but
That would have been
maybe next
great.
time.
That would
Yeah, I
have
would have
been
loved
great.
it.
Malta is a very small island. Right now, the weather is just about right, I would say. Here's in the afternoon.
Oh, good.
So, but the weather is just about right at the moment because in summer it tends to get a little bit on the hotter side. So, it might be a
Yeah.
little bit unpleasant if you're used to colder weathers.
Yeah, I prefer hot weather. I think one of the hottest days I ever had was in Italy. It was I was on a bus tour, and I
Okay.
know you're not, like I know you're an island. But, I remember we were going through the Vatican and everything on a bus tour, and of course you have to have your knees covered, and like
Yeah.
there's a dress code there, so we were walking around Italy, and it had to be like 45, 47 degrees in the heat, and it was just even the locals were like just like walking around like kind of fanning themselves. So
Yeah,
yeah,
sometimes the
I
heat
like a
waves
moderate heat.
sometimes the heat wave hits us very hard, and it's
Oh
actually quite
yeah.
dangerous to walk outside. So in some cases, it's quite tends to get quite dangerous. So it's not even recommended to go at certain hours of the day outside in the sun. So yeah, it tends to
Yeah.
be quite. Anyways, we're talking about the weather, which is usually referred to as small
I
talk.
know. I never. The funniest part is I always tell people, like I'm incapable of small talk. If you want to talk about the weather, it's going to go into something much deeper than the weather. But like I was just like, right now it's a beautiful day, and I was just like, I'm feeling like weather. But yeah,
Nice.
we should get into the deep stuff. So
Yeah, I think I would. You're a fellow podcast host, and I'm quite curious about that. I just took another look at your website, and you're on episode 15, which is great. What
yeah,
what what encouraged you to start your podcast show, and what is it about? For the listeners of course, they might not know about.
sure. Well, yeah, the podcast is called 5 Year You, so you can go to 5yearyou.com and check it out, or it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and everywhere. The idea of it all came to me about 2 years ago. I was going through a really, really hard time, and I wasn't being my authentic self. And I thought, like, where do I want to be in 5 years? And that was the precipice of saying, okay, I need to have a plan of where I want to go. I'd always done 5 year plans, but the 7 or 8 years before that, I just kind of
Okay.
achieved what I had set out to, and I was kind of just waffling. And this kind of gave me the idea of like, when you have purpose in your life, when you know where you want to go, everything is easier. You have
Mm.
that vision. So 5 Year You is the idea of becoming the best version of yourself one day at a time, and that's where the podcast comes in because it's really easy to say, I want to be a movie star in 5 years. I'm listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger's new book this
Okay.
morning, and he's talking about it, like how he had these different visions for parts in his life, and it's very easy for us to have that vision, but then the day to day stuff can kind of trip you up. So the idea with 5 Year You is that we want to walk beside you as you're going through this. And we actually just launched a great new email series where people can subscribe and they get a very short daily email from their future self offering encouragement or ideas or suggestions on things that they're doing to improve their lives. So it kind of keeps them walking the path and keeping that motivation up. We're very big on that.
Yesterday I was giving a lecture, and yesterday's topic was about leadership and management, which is something that I'm very much invested in. And we were discussing about making plans. And at one point in time during the lecture, the conversation turned into to make future plans, a 3-year plan, or even asking the question during interviews, where do you see yourself in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time? And my usual answer to that is I don't usually ask that question during interviews because I feel that it might seem a bit intangible to people because 5 years tend to be a bit of a long time. But I'm curious about what you think about it, because how can you make something far in the future as tangible as possible? How do you deconstruct that abstract concept in a way?
What a fantastic question. I think the idea of having a 5-year you, a 5-year plan, is giving yourself permission to dream bigger than where you currently are. So when we can do that, when we can kind of put ourselves into this place of, oh, I want to be, I want to be the best podcaster. I want to run a personal development company that changes people's lives on the daily basis, and just, I want to contribute and help. That is a big goal. That's a big vision. And shorter goals are really good. They help you get through the days. But that long vision kind of keeps you on the path. It's like, it's the end. It's not an end destination, but it's an intention that you're setting for yourself. Is this is what I want to do. I want to help people become the best versions of themselves. And I find my reality has been that when you set an intention, when you get really clear about what you want for your life, or for those, for the life around you, for your work, whatever the case is, for your body, once you can do that, suddenly everything lines up a lot faster, and you get to that 5-year point, maybe in 2 years.
Yeah.
But in doing that, in having that kind of end goal, you know, okay, it's more about the journey, but it's also a journey has to have a destination. And that destination, like when you're going from New York to Los Angeles, once you get to Los Angeles, you're gonna go somewhere else. Then that's great. But you need to know that you're going from New York to Los Angeles. And those are kind of our two big things. Is like, first of all, you need to assess where you are, and then you need to decide where you want to be. And those are big things. Those are big questions, because I think a
They
lot of us are
are.
really worried about getting it wrong. I mean, I know for myself, like I said, I'm taking some flights tonight, and I've carved out time to just to go back through my vision, and I go through it in my mind, and it's like, what does that feel like? Why? And I dig in. Why do I want to feel that way? Why this and not a soccer coach or a football coach or something completely different, right? It's, why is this calling me? And because I think a lot of times we have that, like there's the in my work, and I'm sure in yours too, you come across the superficial goals, right? The I want a lot of money, and you'll hear that, or I just need to be calm. It's like, okay, but why? Why is that so important to you? So I think in having that long goal, it brings it closer, and having the steps along the way to get there, it just kind of helps keep you on the road when sometimes you might feel like you're getting off. But like most road trips, there's fast times and slow times, and you just get used to them.
And at least from I'm sure you encounter similar situations. Some people are very lost within their sense of self, that they can't answer the questions, where I'm at and where I would like to head towards to. They find it difficult to visualize a goal or to manifest what they really want. So earlier you mentioned authenticity and that you were not living a life and being your authentic self. And I resonate with that. I think that's something very important. It gives us being true to ourselves. I think it gives us strength and purpose in return. But some people are entangled in the noise of the day to day and they can't seem to get out of it. What's your take on this? How would you help someone who is lost and they feel that they can't get out of the cage of life, if that makes sense?
Well, I was actually the same way. So it's I would say when you're at that point where you're like, I just don't know. That's great. Accept that you don't know. Accept it. I think so much of us, we when we are starting on this path of growth, of expansion,
Mm,
kind of living the life that we feel like we're here to live. When we have that and we don't know, we put a ton of pressure on ourselves, and it doesn't have to be that way. So I encourage people while they're doing the inner work, because the inner work's the biggest thing, right? It's,
yeah.
people will say, I've heard every excuse in the book, and they're not excuses, except they are excuses.
Yeah.
There's the things that hold us
There's
back,
a
and
yeah.
they're all valid. Like I have to work at this job, I have to take my kids to
Yeah.
places, I have to go do these things. Those are all valid things. Um, but maybe what's going on is that the why for what we'll get to that in a second. When it comes to like not knowing where to start small. And you don't have to open the door. Sometimes just peeking through the keyhole and going, okay, I can see something here. And when you start to honor that part of yourself, that
Mm,
part that's like, I would really like to be 10 pounds lighter, or I would really like to, go out for a walk every day just to kind of be by myself, to give myself permission to have that time to myself. Whatever it is, I think starting small is a much more manageable way than going, I'm going to be the president in the next
yeah.
5 years and I've never done anything political before. Like it's,
Yeah.
you probably can do it these days the way social media and everybody can catch fire the way
Definitely.
they do, but that's a lot of pressure too. And I find when people do that, they put this insane amount of pressure on them that makes them stuck, and it's kind of sad because really you want them to embrace the
Mm,
small step. Like just take the first step. Sometimes you
yeah.
don't know you're going to Los Angeles. You just know you're taking one step away from New
At the
York. This is
time.
not against any New Yorkers, by the way, but I think that's just it, right? You're going on the journey, and it does start with a single step. So sometimes it's just going,
Mhm.
you know what? I'm gonna drink. I want to. I always tell people, like, if you can't do anything else while you're doing the work, we can work. I'm an energy healer, and the way we work with things is I really like to get into the root cause of stuff.
Yeah.
So while we're doing that, while we're unlocking things and releasing things, start with your health. You're going to need your body one way or the other to get through this. You need a good vehicle to get where you want to get to with your
Yeah.
journey. So start as something as simple as, if you're not drinking enough water, drink more water. Have more vegetables. Do the things that make sense to you. Everybody's different, but
Yeah.
do that one thing that kind of gives you momentum and start going.
I think we we are often mixed up between um, thoughts and emotions, and it- I think that's the most difficult part.
Hands up, yeah.
We're opening a bit of Pandora's box here.
Yeah, we can
I
go right
think
in. I'm good.
yes, yes, um, and I think that is the crux of things because we are. It happens naturally to us. I mean, um, for those of us who have a heightened sense of logical reasoning as well as emotional reasoning, it often tends to get a little bit blurry. And sometimes we tend to be highly logical and highly emotional, even without us being 100% fully aware or in control of it. So, to continue what you were rightfully saying about starting small, um, sometimes I always suggest to the people I interact with or clients I coach is that do what feels right. As long as you're not hurting anyone, including yourself, do what feels right. Sometimes we can't
Yeah.
know if something is right or wrong, or we can't have a logical explanation to it, but we can feel it. We can
Yeah.
feel whether something is right. It's the gut instinct, the gut feeling.
The, the gut feeling, yeah.
I think I would because those are really connected to our senses. I feel we would know if something doesn't feel right. At least if the first step is not very clear to us. If it's clear, then we go
Yeah.
for it. And I love the way that you explained. Start with drinking more water. It sounds so easy, yet we find it so difficult to do, including myself. Sometimes I have to remind myself to drink at least 2 liters of water. But it's so simple. Yet, if you don't drink enough, you have a headache. So the headache
And
that you might
you're
have,
foggy.
yes. So with just a simple act and a basic human need as well, because we need water to survive, we can.
It's a
It has
thing.
it is yes, it has a ripple effect, pun intended here. So
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. That was good. I like how you did that. Yeah. You know, what's coming to me when you mention like thoughts and emotions, I think one of the, I've got a few different things on this, but one of the big things is that when it comes to taking action, a lot of us are stuck. And that's the thing. When we peel back the layers of the onion to get to the core issue there, often it's, I'm worried I'm going to do it wrong, or I'm worried I'm going to be wrong. I'm seeing this right now with my kids a lot. I'm seeing it a lot with everybody, and I know that I get that way too. And what I'm finding is that you're not going to get it right. So be okay getting it wrong. Accept that, like, there is nothing any of us have ever done perfectly the first time. It just doesn't happen. We didn't start, we crawled, then we walked, then we fell down, we took a step, we fell down. We didn't lie on the ground and say, okay, Mom, you're going to have to carry me around for the next 80 years. Good luck with that.
yeah,
We got back up and we did it. And and I'm not pointing fingers at things, but I kind of am. And I notice with the school system, I know for myself, it's like you go through it and you get a 98. I never had a 98, but let's pretend I did.
yeah,
And you know, the question is, well, which question didn't you get right? And it's
yeah,
like it's always that emphasis on what you didn't do or what you did wrong.
yeah,
And now that we're out of school, or if you're in school, you realize that life really isn't like that. But that's some really old programming. Like, this is programming that hits you at 5 years old, where it gets
yeah,
locked in, where it's like, you know, you were supposed to put eyes on your little puppet, or, you know, macaroni character. I don't know if they say
yeah,
that in school, but and you didn't. So, you know, you only got 5 out of 10, and suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, I am not perfect. I have to make sure I am playing by everybody else's rules. So there's like a lot of stuff in there.
yeah,
So one of the biggest things that people have when they don't start is that they think they need to get it right away. And I will be the first person to admit I get everything wrong. I like, go listen to my first podcast, like, and go listen to today's podcast. It's
yes.
still not perfect. It's never gonna be.
It's
But I
never
show
going to
up
be.
and I do it and I learn
Yeah,
and I grow, and that is the biggest thing. So, you know, you're meant to grow. When it
yeah,
comes to your thoughts and your feelings, your emotions, and that gut, I think that's the hard thing. Is like, people, I mean, I know I get in my head with it. I'm like, okay, is
yeah.
this my gut? Is this my head? All
Which
this
one is
stuff.
it?
Which one is it, right? And it's like, you'll know pretty quickly. And if you don't, just, that's one of the things you got to learn. I'm learning it. You
Yeah,
know, you're learning how to trust your intuition, and it's not something, for some people, they've been honoring it their whole lives, and it's great. I'm trying to get my kids to do this more and more. Because the more you know that, you just know, like
Yeah.
we have all had that moment where you're like, I feel like doing this weird thing, like whatever it is, like, I feel like I should go to this place or call up this person, and that person will call you, or you'll go to
Ah,
this place and somehow
yes.
you win something, or something, this really cool thing
This,
happens, and you're like, yeah, and then you're trying to put that lightning in a bottle, but it doesn't work that way. It just comes to you and you go do it. So, if you're thinking about that friend over and over again that you haven't seen in 15 years, and you're like, I don't know why I'm thinking about them, call them. They're probably thinking
yeah.
about you too. It's a weird universe. We don't understand how it all works, but we
Yeah.
know that these things happen. And the other thing that I feel very, very compelled to tell the listeners right now is you don't have to believe every thought you think, and your thoughts are not facts. And that
Mm.
has been two things I have learned over this past year, that have really just kind of blown me away. And, when I have a bad moment, a bad thought, I can go, okay, that's not serving me. I'm choosing not to believe that. I've even gone so far as, our amygdala kind of, it
Yeah.
sounds it's that part of our brain that kind of goes right away. So when you walk in the forest and you hear leaves rustling, your brain goes, then the amygdala pops up and goes, "That's a tiger. We
Yes.
have to be careful." It's like there's not a lot of tigers in Canada. I don't
Yeah.
know about Malta, but I'm guessing
No,
there's not.
all in captivity, the few of them we have. So,
Exactly. Right. So you have this thought, and so I nicknamed my amygdala Amy, because that's the first couple letters of it. And so
all
when this
right.
starts to happen, I just go, "Shut up, Amy. It's not real. It's like we're okay, and trust me, if I do see a tiger, I'm going to have to react to that, or whatever, like
Most
large animal.
definitely.
It's never it's like it's usually a bird in playing with the leaves or something silly, but we have to laugh at ourselves with
We
this
tend
stuff.
to
It's
think
like,
of
yes,
in the negative way automatically. It's like an instinct. It's like that's why the amygdala.
it
Um,
is.
so we have to. Uh, in psychology, this is called metacognition. So you're thinking about your thoughts, which is an
Yes.
interesting concept. And I like the way you describe the thoughts. That your thoughts are not factual, and you don't have to believe your thoughts. I mean, you have to sift through them. It doesn't mean that if you're thinking it, it's real. But at the same time,
Exactly.
um, you don't. It's not held to be delusional as well. So you see it, you reason it out, and if you don't need it, if it's not serving you, just to steal a little bit of your words, you throw it away. So you're filtering the
Yes.
thoughts. I think that's a very powerful skill to develop over time, and I'm mentioning a skill to develop over time, even to connect it with the educational system that you've mentioned. We are not taught these things at school, unfortunately. It's either we learn them throughout life the hard way, if we sit down with ourselves and have a conversation with ourselves, an honest conversation. And by time this hopefully becomes a little bit more easier to digest. But I think
Yeah.
it's definitely a skill that we need to um, focus on learning and harnessing. And at least my experience, the older I get, the stronger the thoughts are for some reason. So
Yeah.
this is something that came to me very recent. The older I got, the more I cared about stuff, and the more pressure I put on myself in a way. So the more effort I have to do to quiet my mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah. That makes sense. I I have noticed. So, what I like to say is that, with metacognition, I give the example of you got to get out of the painting. That, like, you're in a painting right now. You're in a video game, whatever thing you need
Yeah.
to use. You're in, like, kind of this reality that you're in, and you see it around you. But if you can get outside and stand and go, "Oh, look at me right now. I'm getting worked up about the fact that the waiter didn't bring me the right order, and I'm worried about this thing, and I am treating this like it's a category 5 disaster, and it's really, not, but my body's reacting this way." that's a good way of doing it. It's just kind of like literally trying to step outside yourself and look at yourself. I've done that multiple times this week. I've had some really good breakthroughs this week, and as it happens, like a lot of times it comes from stepping outside of myself and going, look at how you're resisting this thing that's coming at you. And I can definitely speak to, as we get older, I've noticed both of myself and the people I know, is we tend to cling to things, we tend to cling to our thoughts as facts, and we hope that they hold true. And when we see something outside of them that isn't that, it's really hard. And I like being with people who challenge me on that. I don't like it in the moment. I will be completely
Yeah.
honest with you, because sometimes it's really hard to adjust
It's
to.
frustrating.
But yeah, it's really hard. But like you think about it, like if you are thinking, um, I recently like completely changed my diet. I was coming off, I went through a divorce the last couple of years. My whole life is completely different than it was a year ago, and 2 years ago, I wouldn't have believed that I was doing the things that I'm doing right now, and I'm very grateful for that. But it's taken a lot of adjusting. So as I was coming off this medication, I realized that I needed to change my diet. And
Hmm.
so I did that. And as I did that, I noticed different things happening. But here's the thing. I had a lot of food routines. Friday night was
Okay.
always pizza night. It's been pizza night since I was 12 years old. And it's a really silly example, but
Okay.
you know, it's like we have that every night. It's every week. It's like you look forward to Friday. Friday's the end of the week, and
Yeah.
it's you got to get through the week to get to your pizza at the end. And what's happening is in my brain is there's this. When I was 12 years old, there was this field, right? And if you can just kind of envision like a field with a lot of tall grass in it. And the first Friday, I walked across the field and I got pizza, and then I brought it back home, and that path got a little bit more carved. And then for the next 30 years, I walked that pizza path. Now that pizza path is really, really ingrained in my brain. That tall grass might be up all around it, but the path to my pizza brain, it's there. And I have to change that. So I have to start walking through a new set of tall grass and a new set of habits on that. So it's really, really hard. Our brains get those patterns, those connections, and you have to start making new ones if you want to change. Which is why, I think that's kind of what happens as we get older. Is those neural pathways are so strong and worn that it's just easy to do, and that's why creating another act in your life, like I've done, it takes effort, but you don't have to
That's
do it
true.
all.
That's
The
true.
pizza path didn't get made in one day. It got made over 30 years. I don't know why I would expect that it's going to
Yes.
change instantly. It's going to take effort. I'm going to have to go walk through the high grass. My legs are going to get itchy. I'm going to twitch a few Fridays when I don't have my pizza. That's okay, but
Yeah.
it's worthwhile to do. And I think that's a big thing too. Is we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get things right, or like with thoughts that we have that we've been thinking for our whole life. It's going to be hard to change those,
Mm-hmm.
but that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. The fact that
Um,
that you have the thought is like that awareness is the biggest thing in my mind, because that's the start of it.
mm-hmm.
It's the start of change.
I enjoyed the analogy for neural connections. At first, when you started to recount the
Thanks.
story, I thought, okay, where is Andrew heading with this? But then it made sense, and I feel like highlighting it even more, because in case some of the listeners or viewers miss that, our brain is wired in a way that it creates new paths, neurological paths, to things such as Friday night is pizza night. If we go through that path or that cornfield or whatever the field we like, the more we go through it, the stronger the connection gets. So in return, that makes it even more difficult to change that habit or to stop it
Yeah.
in the first place, because it has become so strong. And you mentioned over 30 years, um, it makes it makes it difficult for us to stop that habit or to change it to a healthier one, for example.
Absolutely.
How did you manage to change and to challenge that pizza route?
Well, I stopped talking about pizza on Friday, which is probably the biggest mistake I could have made today. um,
That's true.
I'm like, I'm going to an airport after this. They're gonna have pizza. I'm really gonna want it. But anyway, I'm
And
just playing.
I'm not making it easy for you. I'm
It's
highlighting and
fine. It's my own.
highlighting.
It's my own fault. I take responsibility for my pizza analogy, but it is I when it comes to all of this, the changes, I was easy on myself. I sometimes, like in the beginning, I mean, I can share what I did for my food plan, because I just acknowledged that I was eating the wrong things for me, and I did a whole bunch of learning, and we're talking 30 years of trial and error on different like kind of foods and stuff like that work, that
Yeah.
don't work, and I'm still figuring it out. But when it came time to have pizza the way I normally would have it, I went a week without it. I kind of went without the foods that I knew were hurting me, and then I went back and had it. And some of the stuff that came up, this isn't a knock on pizza, but we can get into
Yeah.
the metaphor again. But for pizza in particular, the next day I was curled over in the bed like I had eaten the worst food of my life, because I wasn't used to cheese, bread, nightshade like sauce or anything like that. There was a lot of things that I had to cut out. But in doing those things, I recognized that I would rather feel good than not. So I actually had a pain. That pain kind of
Yeah.
came up of going to the pizza place and coming back on that pathway. So now when because it still come up on Fridays, and I'll be like, yeah, but that's really gonna hurt us tomorrow, and I don't want to lose another day to, like just feeling awful, especially on a trip. But like just
Definitely.
any other day, like cravings are there. They're normal, and you just kind of, again, you don't have to believe the thought that you think. You just
Yeah.
go, yeah, okay, so I've got a food craving, I've got a sugar craving, I've got whatever. Again, I was easy with myself. I was going through this journey, and the why was very important. Like, why am I not having this? Well, I'm not having this because I know it causes inflammation in me. It does all these things that don't serve me. And if I want to be a healthier person in this example, then I know I've got to start carving out a new pathway, and I got to find something else to look forward to. So I found
Yeah.
ways to like make myself treats, or at one point I would have like cauliflower crust pizza with like non-dairy cheese or whatever it is. But the point is, it's not like I looked the other, completely did a 180 and started walking the other way. It was that I gave myself permission to kind of wean off of the thing that I was used to
Yeah.
doing, knowing that it was better, but also knowing that it wasn't going to be an overnight thing, and if I slipped, I had to learn the lessons for it, and the lesson was like, this is really, really not good for me. So that's that was what happened.
I think two things that are worth noting in this story. So first of all, thank you for sharing that, Andrew. Are that we shouldn't punish ourselves for if we fall off the wagon. I would say mishaps will happen, and we have to give ourselves time to readjust. And sometimes, and by no means I'm making it sound easy, sometimes all it takes is to have a different reward. If we change the reward that we get out of something, if we start seeing the pros of something, so in your case was the discomfort that you felt, so you were discomfort free if you didn't eat pizza, which that was your reward at the end of it. So sometimes it's the change of perception, which takes time. Sometimes it takes days, but it can take years sometimes as well. So if someone is cutting down cigarettes, for example, that might take a couple of months to years as well, because of even the chemical nature of nicotine as well. So some things might take a little bit more time to desensitize from.
Absolutely, and that was something you hit on something. So what I did was I made the old route painful. The other thing I did, and I didn't touch on this so much, was that the new road, the new neural pathway I was carving for Friday night pizza was there had to be a pleasure for it too, because that really does help. So the pleasure was, you know, I lost like 25 pounds in just over a month in doing this, and I went from 200 pounds to 175. And part of that was medication, part of that's water retention. It's not a diet plan. You're not going to have that
Yeah.
happen if you cut out pizza. You might, but I really don't know. I'm not a health professional in that capacity.
And everybody is
But
different.
what I did was, yeah, well, exactly. I mean, you know, everybody's different. Every body is different. Everybody is different. And what I did was I would rather look better and feel better was that positive thing. So, you know, I had been like around the same kind of weight my whole life, and you know, I wanted to keep this number on the scale, and it's completely superficial. I admit that, I know that, but it's that thing that keeps me on the new path.
Hmm.
And you know, the more I can strengthen that, the more that path gets worn down, and the other one the pizza path starts to grow in. And that's a
Yeah.
really important thing, is that, you know, and again, when you mess up, you mess up. If I have pizza tonight,
Hmm.
I'm not going to beat myself up, but my body will do that on its own tomorrow.
Definitely.
So,
I mean, uh, humans, this has been said quite a lot, and there is a lot of literature about it, that we humans are creatures of habit, that we form
yeah,
what are called rites and rituals. And it's good to have these kind of things because it helps us keep stable, it helps us structure our life around the
oh
things that
yeah,
we enjoy doing. But sometimes it's hard to let go of old um, old rites and rituals. It's like updating your software on your PC or phone. Sometimes it's hard to
yeah,
let go of the previous software. And I think we
yeah,
underestimate how much we change over time. So the things that used to work 10 years ago most probably will not work with us today because we've changed in a decade. And we underestimate that, I feel.
yeah,
That's my perception.
yeah. I agree with you. I believe that we're creatures of habit. We're habit forming uh, beings, and the reason that is like, if you our brains have to do that. We have to. I mean, if you think about, my daughter just learned to drive in the last year, and the things that I take for granted while driving, she is just learning. And you know,
Yeah.
like, you back out of a spot and you're doing all this stuff, and she goes and does it, and it takes her, you know, 5 times as long because she's never done it before. And it's just that those mental pathways are not there. And
Mhm.
so that's what we have to acknowledge, is that we may have made some connections. We may have made some pathways that don't serve us. They may have served us, you know, 12 when we were like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10,
Yes.
whatever, but they don't serve us anymore. But we've never got out of the painting to look back and go, oh, that's why I do this. That's why, you know, I always put like these giant eyes on everything I draw, is because I
Mm.
did it wrong in grade 5, and or when I was 5 years old, and now I'm doing this. That's why, you know, that's why I always feel the way I do when I pass this certain thing or think a certain way about a certain person in my life, or a certain, you know, a certain food or whatever it is. Those are all things that we've just built. You know, you think about it, our
Hmm.
software comes when we when we're born. Our software is kind of fresh, and then
Yes.
everybody comes in and starts putting stuff in, and we actually have a pretty good sense of intuition when we come in. Like, we know what we like, we know what we don't like. We cry like a baby when we don't get what
That's
we
true.
want, or when we're hungry, and we giggle like mad when we love something or when we're enjoying it. And then over time, you know, you're crying in the middle of the night, and you know, mom and dad might say like, go to bed, and you start to learn, okay, when I cry, I don't always get what I want. Or you might learn the opposite. Every time you cry, you do get what you want. And
Yes.
so, you know, you
The
kind of
learned
perpetrate
behavior.
that, or perpetuate
Yeah.
that. Yeah, it's learned behavior. Everything about you is learned behavior. And I know it's a generality, but still. And when you can come at it and go, okay, which of these don't serve me? You know, when you can get that metacognition and go like, I always use the word always. And I don't like that I do that because it's not always, and it's like kind of cursing myself to a way of being. So I literally just, like, that was not something that I was planning on saying. But when I say I always say something, why do I use the word always? It's not always. So maybe there's something to explore there. Maybe there's not. I really don't know. I'm not going to do that on the show. But we have these things in place that served us at one point or another, and you don't have to hold on to them. And that's through the work that we do, that we can help people kind of, you know, have increasing freedom from the thoughts that no longer serve them.
And you mentioned that these past 2 years came with a lot of change. What have you learned about yourself in the past 2 years? Like one main lesson.
One main lesson in the last 2 years
that you've learned about yourself that perhaps you thought you weren't able to do or to say or to believe.
Yeah, for sure. It's never too late to start living for yourself. And you are here. This is going to be a little long, so
we have time.
The thing I learned was that I have time. Maybe I'm just going to give a little background here, just to
definitely go ahead.
So my background, for those of you that don't know me, is I was abused when I was a child. When I was 12 years old, my sister spontaneously tried to kill me. She has very severe autism, and for the next 2 years, at the drop of a hat, as they say, or like without provocation, without anything else, something was happening in her brain that made her want to attack me. And I didn't defend myself. I had enough mental thoughts that to not, you know, protect myself against my sister, to not attack my sister, because, you know, you just don't do that. That was my belief system. It still is. But what pathway got created in my head very early on is that I need to be safe. I need to find safety no matter what I do after those 2 traumatic years. And that kind of went through my whole life. And what ended up happening in that process was that I went and played everybody else's life game. I got a big house, amazing wife with 2 beautiful kids, and from the outside it looked perfect. The house was paid off, everything was good, we were traveling, kind of living your best life. And this part inside of me still didn't feel right. And it was kind of the imagery somebody gave me was like, it's like, you know, you're beautiful on the outside and rotting on the inside. That's a really hard thing for somebody to say to you, especially when you think like, no, this is just how it is for everyone. It's not. And I know there's somebody out there listening right now that's going, oh my God, that's like me. I'm doing this thing. You don't have to follow my path. So what I had to learn was that I had created safety by making everyone else around me happy. And I figured if everyone else around me was happy, then I would be safe, and then that would make me happy. And I gave up my free will to a lot of different things, a lot of different people's preferences and stuff like that. I didn't have preferences because that might make me at risk of getting harmed. And again, this is a 12-year-old mind that has thought this. And it was only when my health started to really fall apart, and I remember there was a moment where my kid dropped something, and it wasn't something like, it's like he dropped his shoe or something when I was trying to put it on, or something fell. And I remember thinking, like, I was having a moment in my head where it was like a bomb going off in a movie where you're doing the slow motion kind of grab or running away or whatever it was. Yeah. And I'm like, that's not a normal response to the situation that's happening. But my my parasympathetic nervous system, I think I got that right, it had been in overdrive. I was on pure adrenaline my whole life, on high alert. And so my amygdala was always, I mean, you talk about looking for tigers, it was looking for tigers like when I walked into my own bathroom. It was just, that was the pathway, that was conditioned. It's like always be on high alert. So with that background, what I had to learn was, if I'm going to help those around me, I need to heal myself, first of all. And in going through my pain and going through the struggles, even this week, I was releasing a lot. You start peeling back the layers of the onion to get to yourself. It kind of becomes, it becomes a good thing where you're like, okay, this is something I don't like about myself, and I have the tools to change it now on my own. So I've built a toolkit over the last couple of years to help fix these things, to help heal these things, fix it that way. So the one thing over the last 2 years that I would say is honor yourself, honor your happiness, and if people around you don't get that, don't get what makes you happy, or don't get what you're doing, they might leave. But they're making way for great people. And if you do that, I can guarantee you some pretty awesome things are going to happen. Crazy. I'm coming off one of the wildest years of my life, and it's only getting followed by the year this year that's been even more amazing. And it's all because I've kind of stopped trying to control everything, and I'm just kind of taking my hands off the wheel and going, okay, let's just see what happens. And you get to have amazing experiences when you start to fulfill what you know in your soul you're meant to do, and you get to talk with amazing people in Malta on a Friday afternoon, which is really, really cool. So
thank you for the compliment right there.
Life. Oh, you're welcome. You're wonderful to talk to, by the way. You're very insightful, very calm. I'm really enjoying this. So
thank you. So am I.
That would be the advice.
So am I. Andrew, I didn't expect for us to get so vulnerable. So thank you so much for sharing your story, and I appreciate your insight that you put into it. And I'm very glad to listen that you're finding ways how you can support yourself. You're creating your support system as well, and that these past months were amazing months for you. Andrew, what was the wake-up call? Because sometimes when we are in these situations, we might have people trying to put sense into our heads, and we are stubborn or stuck in our ways until there is a wake-up call. And unfortunately, that wake-up call might be a little bit too late for some. What was your wake-up call, and what would be your advice for us to wake up before that even happens?
You're never too late to wake up. There's a better dream when you wake up. But it's a great question. My wake-up call came in from the most unlikely of places. Our bodies are energy. I think we all understand that. But our emotions are energy. They're energy in motion. And what I had done, I had trapped a whole bunch of fear and anger and pain in my body, and I never dealt with it. And when I was about 18, 19, I started to cough up blood. And it was, I was told it's my diet, drink less Coke, drink less coffee. And so I started to do that. And it would kind of get better, and then it got worse. And then it got worse and worse and worse. And around towards the end of the pandemic, I was going to see an acupuncturist because I had done everything for it. I had done all these different medical things. Nothing was working, and I was really exhausted from it. So acupuncture was giving me temporary relief, meaning like, I get my meridians and energy flowing, and I'd feel good for a couple of weeks. And in the meantime, I was cutting stuff out of my diet to try to figure it out. And at one point I went to her and I said, like, I don't know what to do. I said, this physical thing, like, I've cut out everything. I'm basically um, I'm basically at a point where, like, I'm having water and certain vegetables and nothing is still feeling terrible. And she said, like, when this happens, it's because your head and your heart aren't agreeing. Meaning your head is going, we need to do this. This is the logical thing. This is how we stay safe. That's what my head was doing. And my heart was going, this is not for us anymore. Please wake up. I'm going to do the things I need to do inside of you to make you wake up. So she told me this, and I broke down crying. And I hadn't cried in front of anybody in a long time. I'm surprised I'm not crying on this show at this point, because I can cry at the drop of a hat now, because I just believe in releasing my emotions. I'm like, nope, that's not, the bad thing's not staying in, it's coming out. And I'm so much happier because of that. And I looked at it, and I had to face the things that I hadn't faced. And the biggest thing was the trauma for my sister, and that was my wake-up call. I went and did different modalities to heal from it. I did EMDR, which led me to, like, eye movement, desensitization. I can't remember the R part, but it's basically you move your eyes back and forth, and it reprograms your brain. I think we spoke about that at one point before we got on the call. And what that did for me was, it was very empowering to know that things can change very quickly if you want them to, but you have to want them to, and you might have to go through the fire to get there, but it's really worth it, because where you are isn't helping. So everybody has a different wake-up call. Sometimes it comes through the loss of something important, whether it's a job, marriage, friend, child. These things happen, but they don't happen to you. They're happening for you. And when you can start to see your life as a series of events that have been happening for you, everything changes. I have done a lot of work around my childhood with the one instance that I was telling you about, and a bunch of others, but with that now I can see my sister, this is the greatest thing that's happened to me. It put me on this new path. It freed me from a lifetime of pain and suffering internally. Like I said, on the outside I was good, on the inside I was rotten. And it was actually my acupuncturist that said that. It's like, you're rotten on the inside, and you have to tend your soil and begin to grow, begin to heal, and that's what happens. So, hopefully anybody's wake-up call doesn't come like that. I would never wish it on anyone else. But I think the harder our traumas that happen for us, the bigger results we can have with the people around us and the world as a whole. I think when you can embrace that these things happen to you for a reason that you can turn into good, life gets a lot more interesting.
Very, very insightful. I appreciate the journey that it took for you to help yourself out. And I was thinking of a silver lining with your message, and what I'm appreciating about your life journey is that you always seem to have tried to help yourself out into the situation that you were in, which is not all of us, at least from the people I meet, not everyone is able to help themselves out for some reason. When it comes to us, we find it the most difficult, no matter what it is, giving us a compliment, taking care of ourselves, helping ourselves out, being our own support system. For some reason, that we find that a little bit more challenging to do than it would have been for others. And I appreciated that from the stories that you mentioned about your life, is that you always try to improve improve yourself, which I think in return supports your cause and and makes it easier for people to resonate with you because you've been through this. It's not just someone saying, you need to do this because you will feel better. You've tried things yourself. And that over the years, that accumulates. Over the years, that
I tell
accumulates.
people I'm the crash test dummy. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you there.
No, it's okay. It's okay. You're the crash test dummy.
Yeah, I'm the crash test dummy of personal growth, meaning I will try something and see how it goes, and I know that in my lowest moments, and they do happen. They happen to all of us. In my lowest moments, the thing that gets me through is knowing that it's going to help somebody else. It's knowing that I'll be able to understand that pain, that moment, that suffering on a level that isn't a textbook. It's not. When you experience something, you know it differently, and it doesn't leave you not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But you're able to keep that set of skills that you use to come over it, and you can offer that to someone else. And you can read as much as you want in books and and case studies and all that stuff, but when you feel it, you don't know what it's like to lose a pet until you've lost a pet.
Yeah.
And that's a really easy example, but if you're somebody that doesn't like animals, it's really hard to relate to somebody when they say, "Oh, my dog just died," and you're like, "Oh, that sucks. I guess I don't know." It's like, no, like it's different when we're feeling people, and I think a lot of us lock down our emotions. I know I did. Feeling them has been a roller coaster that I'm very happy to be on some days. Other days they could just slow it down, lighten the intensity a little bit, but that's okay. Everything is happening for me to help the world around me. And for those that listen in, if you're hearing that, that means you too.
Such a nice message. And I think it takes courage to live that life motto, if I may. So I think it takes courage to be a crash dummy. So it takes courage to try things out firsthand and then live to tell the tale, to make it a little bit more poetic. And because in some cases, these things take a toll on us to try things out. So I'm going to mention something very superficial when compared to your stories. So I think it was about a year and more. No, so December 2022, I started journaling. So every Sunday, I sit down with myself, and I reflect on my week, and I write it down. It's an online journal. It's available, so what you can subscribe to it and actually read it. So it's like a blog, an online blog, and I share my weekly story and the lessons that I've learned throughout that week. And I've been doing that every week for the past a year and a half or so. And I'm not one who used to write. I was never the one who writes on diaries or journals. It's not something that I really believed. I'm aware that it might work for some people because you can express yourself through writing, and that works for some people. But I was at a point in my life where I thought, let's try it out. I might not like it because that's not usually the channel that I use to express myself and to share my emotions. And I took the leap, and because I wanted to perhaps test myself even further, I decided to do it online, which in return helps with accountability, because there are Sundays where I don't feel like writing the journal, and it takes an hour and a half usually to write it down and to put in photos of it and to make it pleasant for the readers as well. So it's Sunday night at around 10, you start writing. It's the last thing that you want to do on a Sunday night usually, but it became also therapeutic in a way. After 6 months or so of doing this every week, I found it very insightful. It used to calm me. It still is. It calms you down, at least for me, and you're able to celebrate the things that happened for you, to use another word that you shared, the things that happened for you. Because sometimes we take things for granted, and a week is filled with so many little things that they go past our heads like nothing.
Yeah.
Sometimes, and literally, I have a screen right in front of me and the screen right here, and I'm writing on this screen, and I have my calendar on this one, and I say, okay, on Monday, what happened on Monday, and I start going day by day, and sometimes it happens to me. Oh, on Tuesday I did that. I had that meeting. I had that conversation, and the week goes by so fast because of so many things you'd understand, because you're also an entrepreneur and have so many moving parts, that the week goes
Oh yeah.
by so fast that sometimes you lose track
Oh
of
yeah.
time itself and of the things that you did. So it's for me it's very very useful. But I had to go through it myself. Now when I'm giving a workshop and I say or suggest that you should start journaling, I have a story to share. This is my story about the journal, and this is my take.
Yeah.
Sometimes we have to try things out for ourselves.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, I've had so many people tell me to journal, and I've tried a few times. It's funny because I love to write, but I never journal. Though I am, it's the new kind of skill that I want to
Okay.
develop for myself, because I know that writing it out. I'm the kind of person that my thoughts get in a loop, and I need to get them out, and once
Mm-hmm.
they're out, I can move on. But they kind of go through a dummy wheel in my brain, as I like to refer to it. It's just like it's just stuck. I just need to get it out, and once it's out, it's good. But that's really important that I think you've just helped me in such a way, because again, I never tell anybody you should journal because I don't have the benefits of it yet. But
Yeah.
hearing your story and what you're doing and why you're doing it and everything, it just resonates differently. And you can hear it from different people, but sometimes you need to hear the same thing over and over from different sources in different ways. And then sometimes it's like the straw that tilts the scale, and other times it's just like it's the right time for it.
Yeah.
And those are both powerful things. But good for you, because it's a hard thing to write, for like to take an hour and a half out of your Saturday or Sunday night before you're going back to work is,
Yeah.
like I'm sure the chatter in your brain comes up every every week. It's like, okay, but you do it. It helps people, and there is something to that. And when I'm having when I was going through EMDR, I had this really powerful moment where you think you know what the problems are, and something happens, and then you realize, oh my gosh, that was just the the book cover to the actual book. It's like, this is way more something else. And I I remember I left there. I left there okay. Sometimes I couldn't even leave. I would go sleep in my car because it was so heavy. Other times I'd be like light as air and walking around going, wow, that felt amazing. This one time I left, and I got home, and it hit me. And it hit me really bad. And I didn't know if I was going to make it. I'll be honest. I think I believe that we need to be more open about our feelings, experiences. I don't think everybody can do it. It's healthier, I think, if we all do. But I'm done trying to. I've never been big on like trying to look perfect for people as far as stuff. So this was a very very low moment, and I don't know. I don't remember a lot of it. I was home by myself that weekend. I was still married at the time, and it was getting bad at that point. Not in a anger way, but like things were shifting, and I knew things were coming. Anyway, I was falling apart, And my friend called me to talk, and he said, you know, the reason why you're going through this and getting through this is because you're going to be able to help people with it. And it really sucks that you got to go through it. And I love you very much, but you're going to help so many people with this. And I think that mindset as you go through your hard times, whether it's just helping your spouse or your kids or that coworker, whether it's just understanding yourself a little bit better so that the next time something like this happens, you can understand it. All those things are helping you help others. And it just takes that little bit of awareness that you can move forward and help others. So I want to thank you for the journaling thing, because I feel like it kind of clicked a little bit differently in my mind than it has in the past. I'm
I'm
not
glad it
guaranteeing you
did.
I'm going to start journaling, because I've learned not to make commitments unless I'm going to 100% do them. But I
Yeah.
really am trying with that one, because I know I know it serves me when I do it. It's developing the path in the tall grass right now to get going on it more often.
If it helps you out, I have another story with regards to journaling.
Yes, absolutely.
This I don't do it myself, but I know someone who does, and I think it was during a podcast episode as well. We're discussing about this either off camera or during the show. Basically, this person takes a photo every day of anything that sparks his interest, and he logs the photos and writes something about this. So if I'm having this recording, I take a photo of the mic and I say, today I had a good conversation with Andrew, for example, just like that.
Oh,
So if you're more of a visual person, this might be quick and easy for you. Snap a photo and write a message about how that photo makes you feel.
I like that. I really like
So
that. I do love taking my pictures, so I think that might be the little prompt that gets me in. I'm gonna try it today. I will try it today and see
you
how
seem
that
to
goes.
have like this fun, so I'm glad. This takes
Yeah,
less
I do.
time.
I like that. I'm like, yeah, I do like that a lot. I think that'll definitely help me. Thank you. I love it.
You're welcome. And in any of these, because to each his own. So to each his own. So sorry, I think my headphones got a bit
I
jammed
can
up.
still hear you. So, yeah.
Great. To each his own. So everyone has their own method, and I wanted to share that method because what I've shared might not resonate with everyone. We might take a piece of this one and a piece of this one and bring out something
Yeah.
new, which resonates with us. And
Yeah, exactly.
so everyone has their own ways and means of applying the same thing. So it's still journaling, just apply it in a different way that appeals to us more, I would say. So definitely.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's a very very useful way of doing it, and I think in my sense, it's just I've been really big the last few weeks about removing friction points on things.
Okay.
So, you know, those things that where you're like, you know, I really want to do this, but I'm not. So again, getting out of the picture and kind of looking back and going like, why are you not doing this thing, even though you know you like to write, you like to do these things, and I, you know,
The
in doing
beautiful
those. Go ahead.
the beautiful thing about these kind of things is, I think you are heading towards this, is that you can look back at that version of you who took that picture, who wrote that message, who wrote that journal, and it will always serve you personally, because I think once you look back at your previous version, I think you gain a greater appreciation of the journey that it took from that moment till today. You'd say, how much I've changed my thoughts, or how my thoughts evolved. So I think it's you gain appreciation and apart from insight, but also I would say is that you start looking at things in a different way. So just to make it a little bit more practical, um, I'm sure you had movies when you watched when you were younger. In my case, it was The Lion King. I
Oh,
used to watch The Lion King over and over
I've
again.
yeah, I've watched it probably 50 times. I love that movie.
Just a
Love it.
great movie. And if
So
if I'm able to watch it now, I would see it in a different way because obviously I'm older. I have gained more life lessons. So if you take a photo today, in 10 years' time, you'd look at the same photo in a different way. You mentioned earlier on. You mentioned that the people get a message from their future self. It's something similar to that. So you're
yeah.
helping out your future self. So when we look back on our past selves, we can gain a little bit more insight or appreciation of the journey that we underwent.
I like that. I really, really like this. You're helping me make connections that I literally didn't know I could make. So thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for this. It's so wonderful. And I'm not surprised you love The Lion King. It's always funny when you meet people and you're like, yeah, you're my kind of person. Not a lot of guys will say, Lion King's my favorite movie. I was like, it's mine too.
No, I watch it so. How come you deduce
So
that?
good.
How come did you make that connection?
I think first of all, there's a prequel to The Lion King coming out called Mufasa. I just saw the trailer for it like 2 days ago in
Really?
the movie
Okay.
theater, and it's real. It's like they're doing. It's not animation. It's like the kind of CGI stuff in it.
CGI. Okay. Okay.
Um, it's really good. It looks really good. I I think the thing that I made two connections. The first one was the reason why I don't want to do journaling is because I don't want to look back on my past because I spent 30 years not looking back because it was so painful. And so that's something that I just got to kind of reframe in my mind, which I'll work on today. And that's kind of something too. When I see something I don't like about myself, and when I make the connection, I
Yeah.
go in and I deal with it, or like deal with is a bad term, but I adjust it. And I think the thing I've been putting in my head too is that, am I gonna be doing it right? And again, there's that. It comes back to what we were talking about earlier that I didn't even
Yes.
realize. It was like I think I was feeling like, well, am I doing the journal right? And it's like there's no wrong way to do it. You just want to be able to come back and experience your thoughts that you had and everything else. And
Mm.
I do think too, like um, I've been online, for several years, but I've only started using my actual name and in this type of these discussions in the last year or so. And I think part of it is like nobody really would ever want to read anything I put up about myself. They're always looking on how to get better. And so I think I can give myself the credit and the love to say like this isn't for anybody else. This is for me,
Yeah.
and I can definitely do that. So thank you for helping me make this connection. It's very very strong.
You're
Really
welcome.
really happy about this.
Me too. Me too. And mentioning the
Yeah.
Lion King and mentioning Mufasa, I remember the line at the very end because it's been a couple of years since I watched the Lion King now.
Mm-hmm.
The part when Simba meets with his or sort of meets with his deceased father and he tells him, "Remember who you are." And
Yeah.
sorry, that's such a profound moment that um, who are we really? We don't ponder on that. What are our value system? What do we believe in? What do we stand for? Um, how often do we sit down and try to we remember who we are? So
And
mentioning Mufasa reminded me of that, and I needed it. I needed to hear it today. So thank you for helping making that connection as well.
you're welcome. In the one our main course at 5 Year U is called it's becoming 5 Year Self, but we've simplified things down to the layers of life, and the outer layer is kind of like that superficial layer that we talk about, like the accomplishments, the accolades, the outer shell. But when you get to the middle, there's 5 layers. When you get to the middle, it's your soul, and it's exactly that question that you said, which is, who am I? What are my values, my beliefs? What are the things I want to feel on a daily basis? I think most of us are either too busy or too preoccupied to want to answer that question. But that's where the freedom is. It's when you can answer to yourself, you know what, I'm somebody who wants to make a difference in this world, in, those around me. I'm the one who wants to bring joy. I want to make people laugh. I want to, I want to provoke emotion. I want, I just, whatever that is you want to do, you're here for a reason. And, I can say I'm closer to living that than I've ever been in my whole life. And at 45, I could have told myself it's too late. Or I could have written what's happened to me off as a midlife crisis.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's people in my world that have labeled what's happened to me in that way. But the thing is, it's a midlife awakening. And there's a very big difference between those two things. Most people, we're all going to have that moment where we get to a point in our lives and we're like, what is our life about? But a midlife awakening is when you come to look at your life and you see this act is ending in the movie of your life, and that a new one's starting, and you have the choice. You have the choice to change the direction of the movie, or you can just keep living the same movie, the same kind of experiences you've been having. There's no wrong answer with that, by the way. But if you're one of those people that is like, I just feel like this isn't it, it's not it. There is something probably there, because a lot of people don't have that thought. A lot of people, and I know I've talked to a lot of people in my day, and some people are just like, no, this is it. I like to do what I do. I like my TV, my video games, my beer and pizza, and whatever else. Great. If they're happy, don't touch it. Mm-hmm. But if there's somebody who's like, you ever feel like you're meant for more? And those are the things. It's like, you're meant for more. That yes, you actually are. Yes, you if you had that thought at 18, that's normal. Every 18-year-old should have those thoughts, in my opinion. If you have it at 25, still great. If you're having it at 30, 35, 40, 45 and beyond, that there's just something there. You're being called. Explore it. It's worth it. You'll be so happy you did. You may not like every step of the journey. Some of the high grass might scratch your legs a little bit. Yeah. But when that path gets laid, you are going to help so many more people go down that path. And I want to hear about it when it happens.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you've mentioned a lot the word helping people, and yes. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I mean, with, at least in my experience, we don't often find people who really want to help people. But I think the way you're describing it and the number of times you've mentioned it, I can sense that it's very important for you to leave a mark in a way that it positively impacts others, at least the people around you or the people who come in contact with you. And I appreciate that quite a lot. Andrew, it's been quite a pleasure talking to you. I didn't expect the conversation to go into the direction it did, but I'm glad it did.
Me too.
At the same time, I felt that I've asked a lot of questions. So in some podcasts before we start concluding the episode, I asked the guests whether you have any question for me that you would like to ask, perhaps something that you would like to know, perhaps something that you would like me to go into more depth.
Yeah, I would, actually. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
In some way, I anticipated the question.
I mean, it's on point. It's a talking point for me, but
it is.
If you were to dream big for 1 minute, what's the biggest thing you feel? What would be like a holy moly kind of thing that you're like, this is amazing that I did this?
So first of all, thank you for the question. It's because you're pushing me past my comfort zone in a way that I don't usually make 5-year plans. So I'm trying to think in a different way so that I can learn something out of it.
For sure. Take your time.
And I don't make 5-year plans or specific year plans, because I try to live by the purpose. So my mission statement, but what I do is giving people the skills to lead themselves so that they can lead others, which is very similar to you. You're helping people to help themselves so that they can help others in return. At least that's the feel that I got.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I think we're in very much in tune to that, and that is an infinite goal to do it. But if I were to measure myself in 5 years' time, I imagine doing the same thing, perhaps using different mediums. In case, just to invent, instead of a podcast, I would have a TV show, for example, but on a bigger scale
That's cool.
where I can positively impact more people. So in 5 years, I hopefully I will be in a position where I can positively impact more people with the work I do. So I can't
I
visualize it
love that.
today what that would look like, but it's something that I'm doing today, but on a bigger scale. So in
On a
return, it
larger
has more
scale, yeah,
impact.
absolutely.
Um,
I love that. I love that. You definitely are uh, serving people and helping people. I got another question for you though,
Fire away.
and I know that's a hard that sounded like it was a hard one for you. So, um, you in what you do, you talk with a lot of people, and uh, I've noticed as I do this work, I notice there's certain human traits that we maybe are lacking or that are common. And what I guess what is like one of your biggest insights that you've had over the last 5 years? Like what is kind of that one is like, I wish I had known this earlier on.
Um, I have a couple. The first
Great.
one, yes, the first one is that I remembered another one. So, anyways, but the first one is that
You're good.
um, sometimes we're too serious with ourselves. Sometimes we need to, as the person who taught me this, is to live a little. Sometimes we're too serious or afraid of doing something, as you were rightfully highlighting, that we end up not doing it for, I would say, the wrong reasons in the long term, but you would realize that there are the wrong reasons in due time, and that moment in time would have slipped away, and it would be too late to do what you would like to do. So if you ever wanted to do bungee jumping, for example, just go for it. Just, there's no use in thinking about
Like
it.
no,
No, the hard
no
no.
bungee jumping for me. But
No bungee jumping.
not there yet. Okay.
Skydiving?
No.
No, afraid of
No.
heights, I guess. All right. Or hiking? Do you enjoy hiking?
I love hiking. Yeah.
All right, so you might do the El Camino, for example, or a hike in the mountains, or anyway.
I'll get to that. Yeah, you finish your thing, but go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. And so that's one thing. Another lesson that comes to mind is, so last July, I've lost one of my dogs, and I had three dogs, now I have two. And you've mentioned the loss of a pet, and I mean it happens, but it taught me something. It taught me something very important, and it's something that I knew, but it's like the wake up call I've mentioned before. Um, I came to realize that it's easier to live with disappointment rather than regret. Sometimes we're in a position where we don't give our 100%, or we say, okay, and we take things for granted, basically. And it's easier to live with the disappointment of trying your best but not succeeding, rather than the regret of, I could have done something better. I could have done that. It's easier to live with disappointment than regret. So that's something that I've learned,
I
because
agree.
there are things that I could have done better. I feel I could have done better. Some people disagreed with me when I said this, especially through the story. But I mean, you always feel like you could have done something better. But it taught me, that situation taught me this lesson.
Yeah. I I think it's. Thank you for sharing that. There's just my mind's wide open right now on a whole bunch of things. I think when we look at those times where, and I've never thought this before until you just said it. It's not so much that you knew; it's that moving forward you can do. And I think a lot of times we're like, I know I should have done this, or you should. You keep. I call it shooting on yourself because it's just so. We just beat ourselves up. But a lot of times when these things are happening for us, we tend to go like, oh, I wish I had done it before. Great, that it sucks. But now you have that gift going forward. It happened for you so that you can escape that and start moving forward in a different way, and that's really powerful. And sometimes the pain of losing a pet, or just loss in general, can really wake us up to certain things and go, wow, yeah, I can do differently now. I knew that I could, but now I'm going to, and that's a big thing. Like, I think as kids we always had that. It's like, why didn't you? Your teacher would come up to you and go, why did you do that? And you go, I don't know. And it's like, you knew better. I'm like, yep. But why'd you do it? I'm like, I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to do the better thing. I just knew what I could just do what I do. So that's it. And it's so funny you mentioned the El Camino Trail. I was just listening to the book. I get books through the Libby app in North America. It's
Okay.
the library, so free audiobooks. I'm always listening to an audiobook. And the Schwarzenegger one I'm listening to is actually, I thought it was his biography when I subscribed to it, but it's not.
Okay.
It's like a personal growth book, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But he mentions going on the El Camino Trail, and I'd heard of it a few years ago, but when I thought, like, that would be interesting to do, but when I hear it twice from two completely different sources within an hour, I gotta
It's
look
like a
into walking
calling.
the El Camino Trail now. So yeah, I'm like, okay, that might be. I'm lots of things to look at the airport instead of the pizza at this point. So that's good.
Yes, you can easily distract yourself now.
Exactly. Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing those things. It's always, I think the more vulnerable we can be with people, the more people open up to us, and the more authentic our relationships
Agreed.
are and our friendships are. So, and I can
100%.
say, I can say that I know we spoke briefly in a meeting, like a meetup before our interview here, and maybe you've experienced this too, but I find in these conversations where you show up authentically, that I have a much I feel closer to you than a lot of people I maybe knew for 20 years and never had any kind of vulnerability with or anything like that. So I think, like, vulnerability, if you like, I know as adults we're always like, well, how do you make friends? I'm like, be vulnerable. You're gonna
Yes,
scare some people away, that's fine. You weren't gonna connect with them. But the ones
definitely.
that you managed to connect with and stay with, wow, it's amazing. It
Definitely.
really is amazing.
And I couldn't agree with you more. I think this is the most beautiful thing I find during podcasts. I mean, I think it has to be related with the theme of my show. But the depth that we reach in certain episodes, it's very touching. I mean, it's one of the things that I cherish the most out of these conversations. I cannot reach this depth with everyone and anyone. So there were guests which were not able to go as deep with me. But it's okay. You meet people where they are, and that's okay. And I think
Yes.
it still forges a kind of different bond with someone, because and I think what makes it interesting is that we purposefully met to have this kind of discussion. When we meet with
Absolutely.
friends, sometimes we just meet for chit chat, and that's fine. That's nothing wrong with that. But today we
It has
met
its place.
purposely to have this kind of conversation, and that sets the tone.
Absolutely.
It sets the agenda for the day. Now, we didn't have a specific target. I don't have a set of questions, as you have noticed, and as I've prepared before we met today. And we just go with the flow. And I think we unpacked quite a lot. And I felt so comfortable in your presence and in sharing, and appreciative of the stories that you shared. So thank you once again, Andrew, for reaching out to me in the first place, and I'm glad that I accepted for you to be a guest on the show. I think, and the listener will be appreciative of this too. So thank you for your insights.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for having me on. First of all, for taking a risk on an unknown Canadian, and it's always appreciated. But yeah, I mean, you it's amazing how you can connect with somebody so deeply in such a short time. And we may have talked about the weather for the first 2 minutes, just because, but like I said,
But
I was
then we
incapable of small talk. You exhausted the small talk very quickly with me, and now it's where we're
then
at.
we
So
nosedived.
it's all
So
good. Yeah. Oh, thank you so much
thank
for
you
having
once
me on. I
again,
really
Andrew.
appreciate it.
Likewise. Thank you so much.